I know a very harsh reality about competitive programming, which is that I think almost 90% people in India are less than 1250 rated on Codeforces. So, and in order to get to 1250, if you put in the right amount of effort, if you're doing CP 3-4 hours probably a day, or maybe even 1 to 2 hours a day, it's not a very difficult thing to crack that in probably 4 to 5 months. If you just want to get to 1250. Now the thing is that even getting to 1250, when you get to 1250 rating on Codeforces, you're among the top 10% coders in India. Right? So that just tells us that there are so many people starting CP and they're ending up quitting, right? So a primary reason why people quit is that, okay, they're stuck on problems. Now there is nobody to help them. And then they feel that, okay, it's too overwhelming. There is like a lot of math involved. Although that is not the case, after a point you realize that it is more about just thinking algorithmically and it just somehow works. It's not so much maths. But initially it seems like that there is so much math. People are doing so well. I am doing so bad here right now. So they sort of end up quitting. You must understand that even spending 3-4 months or even spending 5-6 months on CP is going to put you at a place where if you're attempting a coding test of some company, you're performing better than 90% people already.
Hi everyone, hello, this is Yashwardhan, one of the co-founders here at AccioJob, and today we've got an amazing guest with us. His name is Priyansh. And Priyansh, we've invited Priyansh to sort of have a deep dive and interview him about his journey. He's been ICPC finalist. He's been into competitive programming, runs a great community on all his socials, shares a lot of nuggets around competitive programming and in general how software engineering and skills needed for software engineers to get in and do well, right? So I think we would love to deep dive into Priyansh's journey around CP, and he's building TLE now. So what are his thoughts around TLE and what is he trying to solve for? And more about it across the next few minutes for all of you guys, right? So, but first thing we would love to start with, Priyansh, is a little introduction about yourself. Where do you come from? कैसे CP में घुसे, college life कैसी थी? थोड़ा सा, I think a backstory helps everyone.
Sure. Thank you so much, first of all, Yashwardhan, for inviting. I'll talk a bit about myself. So I started with programming in about class 9. So I'm from ICSE board. So we had this, subject on computer science, which we could take in class 9. So that's where I was introduced to Java. Then I took up computer science again in class 11th. So learned a bit of C++. Then I joined IIT Delhi. And in the very first year of my college, I was introduced to competitive programming, primarily because the coding culture here at IIT Delhi was just amazing. So everybody used to just talk about, how you can solve that Codeforces problem, how you could become a 5-star coder on CodeChef, all of these things. So that got me really interested into competitive programming. And there was also this club called FUBAR in our college, which was supposed to be like an elite club. Everybody wanted to get into that club. So, and in order to get into that club, you had to be very good at CP. So I started with competitive programming primarily to get into a college club, and just because there was so much hype about it. Slowly I realized that, okay, the initial few months were really very difficult. I was going on Codeforces, not being able to solve any problems. I was struggling in contests. There were people who were solving 3-4 problems. I was struggling with even the first problem in most of these contests. Slowly, I got to learn more algorithms. I got to learn more tricks, more observations, kicked in. So that's how it started. In almost about a year, I was completely into it. I was very, very serious about competitive programming. I realized that this is something that I really enjoy. And it was primarily because, competitive programming is a field which is kind of very solo. You don't need anybody else to, kind of help you or, kind of accompany you for you to really go into it very deep, right? So, I mean, that's what most coders also like they want to do something which does not involve a lot of people. They just want to be very, very solo about it. So that's how it started. Slowly I became very serious. In about a year, I became a candidate master on Codeforces, which is equivalent to being among the top 1% in India.
How was your learning journey with CP? Because it's a tough journey, right? And I think in general, not just with CP and overall with DSA, getting stuck and that premium doubt support angle, which is genuinely a problem statement which needs to be solved for, is a given. But when you were doing it yourself, how did you counter these first-hand problems and how did you solve them?
Sure. So again, that's a very interesting question. Right now there is TLE Eliminators. Okay, so there is doubt support. How did I go about, solving the same problem when we did not have the same thing, right? So again, like I mentioned, I was in IIT Delhi. So the very first thing here was that the culture itself was just amazing. Like it was not just me, Priyansh, doing competitive programming in the entire college. There were so many more people, right? So there was always somebody to go and ask a doubt from. Like, okay, that person might reply, let's suppose in 2 days, but you could, let's suppose, catch them, in the college canteen and just, say that, okay, just tell me how this is solved. How did you go about solving this problem in the code chef long challenge, maybe, right? So again, this point was not that big of a deal for me that, people were not there to help me. But in most colleges, when you look at maybe tier 3 colleges, there are very few people who are actually doing competitive programming. Most of them don't even know about CP, right? So again, there the doubt support is required even more. But in my case, it was not that big of a factor. As far as learning is concerned, how I did it is that for the first 3-4 months, I was trying to do things on my own. Like I was just going randomly, solving random problems. But I realized that this is not somehow working for me. So what I did was I took up a course at Coding Ninjas. This was like a competitive programming course that they had. And as I completed the course, I got to learn a lot of concepts like dynamic programming, trees, graphs, all of these things. So I had little knowledge in every single concept after the course. So what this helped me do is that, whenever I used to approach problems, I had so many concepts in my mind that, okay, I can apply this, I can apply that. So that's also the point where my rating kind of jumped. Like I was around 1100 before the course. And after learning these concepts, I was in a place where I could, solve a lot of problems because I knew a lot of concepts. So my rating grew from 1100 to something like 1600 in some time.
I would love to sort of talk more about your ICPC journey, right? A lot of the students are not even aware how big of a deal ICPC is and what is the process like. What is ICPC in the very first place, right? So a little bit about your ICPC journey and how can others actually take part in it, right? Would help.
So ICPC is like the most famous, the most popular, and the most prestigious programming competition when it comes to competitive programming. So it's also known as the Olympics of programming competitions. And why is that? Because it has certain stages. Like first, there is an online preliminary round. Everybody in the world can give it. Like every country has their own online preliminary round. What they do is that they select certain teams. Obviously, ICPC is a team event. So first of all, you need to have a team of 3 people. All these 3 people have to be from the same college. And also the term ICPC is like International Collegiate Programming Competition. So how it works is that you don't just represent your country maybe at the end, you also represent your college, right? So you have to form first of all a team of 3 people. And then first of all, there is this online preliminary round. I'm talking about the Indian scenario here. For certain other countries, it could be a little different. So for India, in the preliminary round, what happens is that every person like who's interested in competitive programming, they sort of team up and they give this contest. Then there is this regional, contest which happens. So in the regionals, there is like generally there are 3 to 4 sites, 3 to 4 off-site, sites that are available. For example, this time we have around, I think, Chennai, Kanpur, and Amritapuri. So from the preliminary round, the top teams, they qualify for these regionals. So what you have to do is that when you're participating in this preliminary round, you also have to register for 1 or 2 of the regionals out of all the regional sites. And then let's suppose you are among the top team from your college. In most of the cases, if you're a top team from your college, you qualify for the regionals that you have signed up for. So how it works for regionals is that they have limited number of slots, like for example, 200 seats maybe. So they fill it in the order of, let's suppose, first of all, the best team from every college. And then if let's suppose they've exhausted all the colleges, so then they take up based on ranks. So it might be the case that let's suppose 2 teams qualify from the same college. But generally, if you're the top team from your college, you're most likely going to qualify for the regional side, right? And in the regional site, what happens is that there is one contest, you have to go offline. And that's, again, an entirely amazing experience. Because for most coders, what we do is we just sit on our laptop, we don't do anything else. But when it comes to ICPC, all of a sudden we have to go and travel to a new different city. It's more like a trip, right? So in the offline contest, it's like a 5-hour long contest. You are given a single computer. There are 3 people. You have to manage your time. You have to do all the team coordination, and you have to solve as many problems as you can. Now, the top team from every regional site, they directly qualify for the world finals. World Finals is like the last stage of this entire competition, wherein you are representing your nation and also your college, right? So top team from every regional, they qualify for the World Finals, and then certain other top teams. Like when I say one team qualifies from every region, it is just the first team that qualifies.
Right.
After that, let's suppose 7 to 8 more top teams, they qualify for the next stage, which is the Asia West Continent Finals. So in the Continent Finals, it is not just Indian teams that are there. There are also teams from Bangladesh, other countries like maybe Afghanistan, all of these things. I don't remember the names of the countries, but there are some more countries in that as well.
Right.
Now, what happens in the Asia West Continent Finals is that this is like another opportunity given to you to qualify for the World Finals. Like if you could not come at the top of the regional side, it's fine, but it might be the case that there are two top teams from India. They both qualify for the same regional side. In this case, only one can come at the top, right? So the other team, they might not get a chance. So this Asia West kind of is a place where you could again qualify, right? So Asia West has around 7 to 8 slots that is given to them, and top 7 to 8 teams from the Asia West Continent Finals, they also qualify for the World Finals. So for my case, it was like we sat for the online preliminary round. We came at the top of our college. So we qualified for 2 regionals. One was Amritapuri and one was Kanpur. In the Kanpur regional, we got a rank of 7, like in the entire regional. And in Amritapuri, we didn't have a very good performance, so we got a rank of 28. Now, based on our Kanpur regional performance, we qualified for the Asia West Continent Finals. Now, in the Asia West Continent Finals, we got a rank of 14. And what happens in Asia West is that the team who came first in the regional, they can also participate in the Asia West. So essentially, when I say there are 7 to 8 slots from Asia West, it's like 7 to 8 slots, excluding the teams that have already qualified, right? So we got a rank of 14, and we were able to, like, we were actually the last team to qualify from India for the World Finals. That's how it was, about the ICPC journey.
Fundamental question which I had was, right, which of course you being a CP enthusiast might have heard several times before, that a lot of people actually in the beginning of their coding journeys, right, especially in colleges like yours or ideally for that matter, right, where there is coding culture prevalent, people do get interested and start CP fairly early, right, a lot of them do drop off fairly quickly also. Right, from that entire CP contest, that okay, I'm not in the race for becoming a candidate master, right? It isn't that easy as well, right? So what do you think a person who individually is getting into CP, let's say, and is in the early stages of their CP journey, how should they think about their CP journey, right? Like, should they self-evaluate, and are there any metrics you would say that how can you self-evaluate if you should be going after the CP journey altogether or not? How should you weigh how important it is to push yourself to go further in the CP journey? Or how do you identify more aligned interest areas for yourself, or areas where you could actually do much better and focus on those, right? So I'm sure this question or this thought might have crossed your mind also multiple times, because the entire CP journey goes like a roller coaster. So in all the downs, you might be giving all sorts of thoughts.
Absolutely. So like you said that, as far as starting competitive programming is concerned, a lot of people start because of the hype that, okay, I want to be the best coder. I want to have a metric, or I want to have a rating assigned to me that people can look at and value me. And mostly coders, like, they want something like that, okay, that I have a rating of 2100 on code courses, now people should value me. That's how they think about it. So as far as, the thing is concerned, I know a very harsh reality about competitive programming, which is that I think almost 90% people in India are less than 1250 rated on code courses. So, and in order to get to 1250, if you put in the right amount of effort, if you're doing CP 3-4 hours probably a day, or maybe even 1 to 2 hours a day, it's not a very difficult thing to crack that in probably 4 to 5 months. If you just want to get to 1250. Now the thing is that even getting to 1250, when you get to 1250 rating on code courses, you're among the top 10% coders in India. Right? So that just tells us that there are so many people starting CP and they're ending up quitting, right? So a primary reason why people quit is that, okay, they're stuck on problems. Now there is nobody to help them. And then they feel that, okay, it's too overwhelming. There is like a lot of math involved. Although that is not the case, after a point you realize that it is more about just thinking algorithmically and it just somehow works. It's not so much maths. But initially it seems like that there is so much math, people are doing so well, I am doing so bad here right now. So they sort of end up quitting. Now, there are two things. Obviously, you could either continue doing CP, or you could probably quit and try out something else, which might be more interesting, right? So how I like to view this entire scenario is that, you shouldn't be obsessed about any field. Like in my case, I was obviously obsessed about competitive programming, but that's not the best way to go about things. What you should do is that you should self-evaluate, like you said. If you think that, okay, this thing is not working out for me, and there are, stages of how to think about this. One could think about it like this, that, okay, I tried to attempt a contest, I could not solve many problems, this field is not for me. Or somebody might be in the position that, okay, I've attempted 10 contests, I'm still able to solve just one problem. I am somehow not improving because of some reason. And somebody might be in the phase that, okay, I've spent 1 year on competitive programming. I have tried out every single thing that I could do. Now it is somehow not working for me. So if you're in the stage 3, that is the point where I could say that, okay, probably you should go for something else. Like 1 year is a time that I have said, like it could be 6 months for you, it could be 8 months for you, right? But you should always self-evaluate and see that, okay, is there some particular reason why I'm not improving? Are there certain weak topics that I have because of which I'm not improving? If that is the case, then yes, you know something that you have to work on. But if you already realize that, okay, I've exhaustively covered everything, I've tried out certain courses as well, maybe I've tried out a lot of problem solving, it is somehow not working for me. Then either you're maybe not interested in it, or maybe, okay, it's somehow not working for you, something else might work for you. Maybe you could go for web development, maybe you could go for some data science, right? Or maybe you could, try out something else apart from tech also. Like that could be like a very harsh step, but there are so many things that you could do still, even if you're not improving in CP, right? So don't just be obsessed about it and be like, "Main to candidate master banunga hi, I just want to be the best." It's absolutely fine if you even quit at a stage where, let's suppose, you're an expert on code forces. Because like I said, even if you're above 1250, you are among the top 10% coders in India, right? So you must understand that even spending 3-4 months or even spending 5-6 months on CP is going to put you at a place where if you're attempting a coding test of some company, you're performing better than 90% people already, right? So even if you want to quit at this stage, it's absolutely fine. Like I have this, like I read this somewhere, probably Naval Ravikant said this, that, if you're playing a game, it always has to be about you deciding when are you going to win it. Like it shouldn't be the society that decides the winning position for you, it should be you that decides the winning position for you. For somebody, it might be becoming an expert on code forces. For somebody, it might be becoming a grandmaster on code forces. So you have to decide what is the enough mark for you, and then you have to focus on that.
Now, talking to you from a more contextual standpoint for our students, right? Now, these are people who are in their final year, most likely are about to enter their final year, are recent graduates who have realized that, okay, what are areas I need to sort of become more hands-on on and go deeper into now so that I can be job ready. And all of them are seeking career outcomes fairly quickly, fairly fast, right? A question which, of course, a lot of these people have is that, okay, DSA is super important, we get it, right? How much does my rank matter now? Should I be doing CP to prove I have DSA knowledge or not, right? So what do you think from a purely career outcome perspective, right? And I think you were on the lines of bracketing it out really well, that if you want to target HFT, maybe then this is super important. If you target FANG, maybe this is super important. There's no year there, etc. Right? People might say कि FANG के लिए DSA कम लगता है, वो लगता है सब बकवास है. वो 5 राउंड इंटरव्यू लेने वाला है सीधा DSA पे, right? So better be prepared. So like, and when these students, like, how would you break it down from a career outcome or a job, software development job perspective? That how can you define your niche, your target areas, and then go after them, right? And of course, the role of like how much of an overlap in CP and DSA would you say for students to sort of look at how should they look at CP in terms of learning DSA?
Sure. So as far as DSA is concerned, like you have a bunch of standard problems that you have to solve. Everybody knows that, okay, there is this bunch of probably 150 or let's suppose 300 problems that we have to solve. So everybody is doing that. The standard problems everybody is doing. So they're kind of prepared for interviews, right? Because I can tell you from my own experience of interviewing with a lot of companies, as far as the interviews are concerned, they're not going very high. Like, they're not saying that, okay, help me solve this a 2000 rated problem on Codeforces. That's not what they're going to ask you, except for a few like probably HFTs or maybe some other companies like Coordination, sometimes Media.net as well. So these are some level of companies which, they've defined their hiring criteria that, okay, we don't want anybody less than probably a candidate master. We want people like that. Okay. So first is that, okay, if you're targeting these companies, then just doing DSA is going to be like probably a waste of time, in my opinion. Because if you're just doing 150 problems, they're not going to ask you these problems. They're going to ask you very advanced level problems, which are going to be new, right? So you need to be training for solving new problems. HFTs, some other companies like Coordination, Media.net, all of these, you should be targeting like that. Like, I want to be in a position where I can just solve any new problem. Like as hard as possible you're going, that's the better, right? Now coming on to companies like probably, Google, or maybe let's suppose Uber, some other companies which are not asking very, very difficult CP level problems, but they're also not asking very standard DSA, right? So right now we're speaking entirely from an interview perspective, not from a coding test perspective. So as far as Google or probably Uber, or let's suppose Media.net also comes into this category only kind of. If you're targeting these type of companies, you have to understand that they're not just going to ask you that lead code medium or lead code hard. They're going to twist the problems. They're going to probably build on that lead code hard problem or that lead code medium problem, but most likely it will be something new that you're seeing. Now, it wouldn't be as new as solving like an entirely ad hoc problem for these HFTs, but it would be somehow linked to, let's suppose, you applying Dijkstra. For example, I remember from my Google, interview, the problem was just simply applying Dijkstra, but it was so complicated, like there were so many nuances in it that it was very difficult to understand that I have to apply Dijkstra. Like if somebody who's prepared DSA, Dijkstra is something that they know, by heart, like they can just code it out right now. But understanding that you need to apply Dijkstra in this problem, that's the main thing, right? So the problems are a bit twisted to challenge you to see if you can even do problem solving and, use those concepts that you've learned. Now, as far as other companies are concerned, like Microsoft, Amazon, and a lot more companies of which I know, these companies, they don't have very difficult interviews. They have very standard interviews. Like they will focus on very basic DSA, like lead code medium, going a bit probably on lead code hard. But again, even if they're asking lead code hard, there would be standard problems. For example, implementing LRU cache kind of problems, right? And then there are, these startups. For example, Zomato, Make My Trip, Flipkart, all of these. Now, the trend, here is that when a startup kind of moves towards scaling and when they think about hiring for long term, they move from asking development questions to more towards asking DSA and then finally towards CP. That's what the trend that I have seen so far. But if you're targeting mostly startups, I can tell you that you're not going to be tested so much on DSA. Unless and until you're applying for companies like, like Zomato, I know that, okay, they hire on DSA also now. They've started asking tougher level of DSA and CP problems, but they still do profile-based shortlisting. Like if I'm very good at CP, they would ask me very high-level CP problems. But if I'm good at development, Android maybe, they would ask me more Android-related problems. So like this is the kind of criteria. HFTs, you have to do CP for sure. Google, Uber, all of these companies, you can do a bit of CP, that is going to be fine. Microsoft, Amazon, and other companies, you can do just DSA, go for lead code hard, and you would be fine. Then if you talk about startups, even if you don't do DSA, you might be fine, right? So that's how I look at it. Second, you talked about this thing that what is the overlap between DSA and CP? Like, can you somehow optimize your entire learning path so that you could touch upon both these things and do the best of both worlds, right? So okay. I think what you can do here is that probably just do a lot of lead code problems firstly. And then if you don't want to get into hardcore CP, like if you feel scared of the Codeforces UI, like I saw somebody tweeting a couple of days ago that, okay, the Codeforces UI seems really overwhelming, so I don't want to do Codeforces. So if you think that, okay, CP platforms are really overwhelming, it's fine. There is Lead Code that also organizes these bi-weekly and weekly contests. You could just do these contests and you would get a fair bit of touch of CP. So like I said, talking about companies like Microsoft, Amazon, up until this level, Lead Code contests are going to be absolutely fine. But going beyond that, I would suggest you to go for at least Codeforces and, maybe AddCoder. Because here you want to not just target being able to solve standard problems and solving them very quickly. You want to be able to think about new ideas, right? So what happens in CP is that when you look at the first initial problems that you would be solving as a competitive programmer, they would be completely disjoint from DSA. Like people come and tell me that, okay, ask me that, should I do DSA before I start CP? And my answer is that if you're just wanting to go for CP, there is no need to start with DSA, because the initial set of problems that you're going to solve are going to be completely disjoint. They're going to be just about math, about thinking about new logic, and not applying any algorithms or data structures, right? So as you go forward, as you, let's suppose, progress towards the third or the fourth problem in a contest, in a code forces contest, that's the place where things like dynamic programming, graphs, trees, all of these come into the picture. But even when we're looking at these topics, you are not going to be ever tested on standard problems. Like nobody is going to ask you that, okay, how do I solve this? Probably, like there are these famous DP problems like LCS, LIS. How do I solve this LCS problem? Nobody's going to ask you that on code forces. They're going to give you a very complicated problem. You will have to reduce it down to LCS and solve it. So when you're looking at the third, fourth problem, mostly people don't go up to that stage. Mostly people are looking at the first and second problems. So if you want to target, that new thinking, like if you want to develop that thinking of being able to come up with new approaches, you could do DSA up to you could completely, exhaustively complete DSA. And after that, you could do some sort of CP as well. Like doing the first initial set of problems on code forces, and that would help you open up your mind. I am not asking you to go for code forces, maybe D or E level problems, because at that stage, you need to be at a position where you can do dynamic programming very well, and you could also think about new ideas very, very well. So that's like a completely advanced domain. So it's absolutely fine if you're not going to that, but even doing the first initial set of problems is going to be fine, right? And if you're preparing for HFTs, again, there is no limit. You have to solve these code forces D and E level problems for sure.
Towards the end, would love to talk a little bit about TLE. How's the journey of entrepreneurship for you been like, right? I think great job building an audience online, putting amazing content online, having that distribution already established for yourself. A lot of people who look up to that content, and that content in itself is solving a problem for them, for a lot of them, right? And building TLE now to solve the value-added problems further from there. So how has the entrepreneurship journey been treating you?
Yeah, as far as entrepreneurship is concerned, I think it's much harder than the CP journey that I've had so far. Like there are there are more down times than the up times. So as far as the journey is concerned, I think it's a mixed opinion that I have. Like firstly, there are points where you perform very well. You take certain decisions where things just scale up very well, and let's suppose you ended up making a decision which let's suppose helped like 500 people, right? Something like that. So if you are making good decisions, as a founder I'm speaking, if you're making good decisions, it feels great. But you're not always going to make good decisions. There are going to be times when you make the bad choices. So that's the place where it hurts. You stress about it a lot. There are times when you're not able to sleep because of certain decisions, right? Like, okay, I made this decision. What is going to happen tomorrow? Is the website going to go down because of this, or like are people going to stop looking up to TLE Eliminators because of this? So there are a lot of thoughts that come to my mind, and it would come to anybody's mind if they're a founder of a company. So as far as the journey is concerned, I realized that over the years, my teaching style, my product knowledge, and my analytical skills, all of these things have changed drastically. For example, when I started off with TLE, it was like very, very random. We never used to look at any metrics. Like at the moment, we look at so many metrics that, okay, how many people are actually completing the course? How many people are able to solve this problem, right? Is this problem even relevant to give to the students, right? So there are so many metrics that we're tracking now, and we never used to do all of these things. And what happens is that after a point, once you get all of these, product insights, you are able to make very good decisions. Like you're able to understand that people want this and not that, right? So having that product knowledge, I think that, or that product bent of mind that comes with time. Initially, you just think about just selling a lot of products or just having a lot of sales. But after a point, you realize that, okay, even though my sales are increasing, but my profits are decreasing. Kind of like this type of a trend also comes in. That, okay, you're having good sales, but at the end of the day, the money is not coming in for you to invest on other products, other more interesting ideas, right? So these are certain things that you need to look at. Additionally, I also want to talk about, the trust factor. Like as a startup founder, you also start trusting people more, like, because, you can't do all the things on your own. You have to trust people to do the job well, right? So you need to start trusting people, and there are phases when people break that trust. Like you assign a responsibility to some person and they end up doing something which was not intended. And I mean, even worse, they end up doing which was something that they should have never done in the first place, right? Like, not saying that, okay, they fucked up a certain thing, that's absolutely fine. If you make a mistake in a certain thing, it's fine. But if you end up going out of your way and doing something that harms the company as a whole, there are phases that I have seen people doing things like this, and it's very hard to, part ways with people and make yourself believe that, okay, it's fine, this person cannot be trusted anymore, you have to let them go, right? So there are phases like that as well. And overall, I think other than anything else, like apart from trust or apart from team building, product knowledge, I've realized that I kind of really enjoy this field. Like, just being able to stay connected to competitive programming, being able to talk to so many people, being able to relate to the same problems that I faced, and like to the problems that students are facing right now. So that's how it has been. It's been like a bumpy ride. There are low times, there are up times as well. But overall, it's really fun. It's actually very enriching, and sometimes when I'm sleeping, when I'm not stressed about my bad decisions, I feel very, very satisfied that, okay, I am doing something that I love doing, right? So yeah, that's how it has been.
Absolutely, yeah. I think entrepreneurship as a journey is super self-rewarding. Be it you end up successful, you don't end up successful, I'm sure the journey will be very, very enriching. I've spent 5 years in that journey already, and I feel the fruits of it. I never regret for a moment now that what is the opportunity cost I lost out on, and what else could I have done. I think those thoughts have stopped coming altogether now. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I wish the best for the journey ahead with TLE also, and of course for the ICPC finals. Yeah, on that note, thank you so much, Priyansh, for taking out time. I'm sure the content will be very valuable for our audience as well, and a good introduction into how they can actually get into competitive programming, take that leap of faith if you're still on the fence. Definitely apply for ICPC, get started. I think getting started is like the biggest inertia break which you can do for yourself, and that can take you to a lot of places. So yeah, perfect. Yeah, thank you so much for your time, Priyansh.
Thank you so much for inviting. It was lovely talking to you, and I hope to stay connected with you even after this call.
Absolutely.